so I think we're good, huh? It's nice to have you here today. Thanks for coming. This is an intensive workshop, and when Patrick asked if we would come and be a part of this, he asked if Brent and I would maybe do a little bit of an intensive workshop on this topic of facing and overcoming missionary challenges. And so certainly we're into the topic. We're really moving along. I think there's been a good foundation built over the last few sessions related to the importance of our personal walks with God, how we kind of keep that biblical foundation in the midst of some of these things that we're discussing. And again, we want to just reiterate how important we believe that is, especially in our ministry of pastoral care to missionaries overseas. We do have lots of people who in Barnabas who are specialists in the areas of debriefing and crisis intervention, and they can provide all these tools that we're talking about, certainly, but our premise is that everything that we do in ministry related to the shepherding of missionaries is to lead all those that we serve to the chief shepherd, and recognizing that we, even in our own limitations in our caregiving, can't really deliver the kind of care that only Jesus can deliver. And so that's kind of, again, the backdrop with which we want to begin and talk with about today. We'll kind of be going back and forth here a little bit, Brent and I, and we're gonna be moving around a little bit today. You're not going to be in your seat all day long for the next 90 minutes. We're going to be doing an activity where we're going to need your input and your feedback, and get a bit of a perspective on what you're actually seeing with those people that you're working with. And then we're actually going to end the day with some case studies, where we actually have 5 case studies on the field where we're going to split you up into groups, and we're going to let you work on those together as a care team, that you can actually come up with some ways that you can shepherd and tend to this particular situation that we're going to give you in your groups, and we'll debrief that in a little minute, in a little bit along the way. I'm just curious to know, as we kind of start this thing off, is do any of you know of any missionary families that have left the field in this past 12 months, who have come off the field and raise your hands real high for us. Wow, my goodness. That's a lot. A few years back, there was a study that was done. I brought a bunch of folks that I hope will be... You can't take them with them. They've got my names on them. So, this is a study that was done some years ago, and those of us who've been involved in member care really appreciated this study called Too Valuable to Lose, Exploring the Causes and Cures of Missionary Attrition. The reasons why missionaries leave the field, and the reasons why they no longer are doing their work. Sandy, can you pass those out? I forgot to get those out to everybody. The work's doing. There's a follow-up book written as well, worth keeping. And these are just some of the things that I think it's important that this study reminds us of the significance of what we're talking about related to this issue of stress, related to the challenges that missionaries face, and how we can come alongside them. That in this study, we don't have any research right now that's really up to date on missionary attrition that I'm aware of. If some of you know some of that within the global world of missionary care, we appreciate having that information and see where we're at right now. But when this research was done some years ago, there were more than 7,000 missionaries that would quit within a given year. Nearly half of these will have managed only one term on the field. So someone was speaking, I think yesterday, and I heard them talk about in the workshop that was in here yesterday, the number of people that they had been ministering with who only survived one term, 3 years years to 4 years of ministry on the field. And as someone in leadership in missions, when you think about all that goes into equipping and training and financing and getting someone actually to the field, to only be able to serve for 3 to 5 years, and for some reason, whatever reason it is, they burn out, as Brent was talking about, or they just give up and they leave. To think that nearly half of those only manage to stick it out for one term is pretty significant. It's estimated that from this study that 20 missionaries will pull the plug on their ministries today. So as we sit here in this workshop, as we sit here throughout our day, from the multitude of mission organizations and churches that have sent out missionaries, there's a significant number that are going to be making decisions to actually leave the ministries that they've been involved with. So the urgency, you can see, is significant for what we're dealing with, which equates to every 15 minutes. By the time we finish this workshop, 4 or 5 more families are going to make the decision to leave the field after maybe years of service, or maybe only 3 or 4 years of service, and again, for multiple reasons. These things we're talking about. The big issues that are in the world today of personal security and safety, significant violence that's taking place that causes people to leave, trauma situations that are happening around the world that are impacting global workers are much a part of that today. But there's the other reasons of just unrealistic expectations from a mission team or from a church, or a marriage that's not been tended to for whatever reason, or children's education who they can't find any other source of education for their kids, and so they have to make a decision to leave the field. So there's multiple reasons for this, and that's what these books and the research here has done. So if you're really interested in digging into some of that kind of stuff, I would encourage you to do so. The interesting point at the bottom of your worksheet there, it says, however, 50 to 70% of all of these people that actually leave could be prevented. That they don't have to go. Some of these, the attrition rate that we're aware of, there's nothing that could really be done that's would not impact these people from coming back to their home countries. But a lot of them are salvageable. A lot of them are ways that we as caregivers can come into their lives and can come into the relationships with them, provide the resources for them to manage the stresses that they're living under so that they can have a successful, if you will, missionary experience. And survive the global work that they're involved with, and so that to me is pretty significant for us to think about related to that. I wonder, it might be good just to just verbalize, because we're going to go into an activity here in a minute where we've actually got 6 different categories of stressors that we want to kind of get some real life stories on if we can. But what are some, we use this word challenges. What are some of the challenges that your missionaries have? I just would like to hear some popcorn challenges that you're currently facing with some of the people that you're working with. Yeah, just...
their visa permissions.
The visa situation. I've got a family in China right now that they have to renew their visas, and they have a number of children, and so their visas are on different time frames. So every year they're getting a new visa for one member of the family, and if one of those doesn't work out, then they got some issues to deal with. So that's a real life issue. With what just took place in our country related to immigration decisions and visa decisions, that is going to trickle down, and that will eventually reach the fields where our folks are working, and the impact could be significant. So we need to be alerted to that. The political scene of what's happening related to our administration in the United States particularly, and how the world responds to that, could potentially impact visas and countries where we have current workers who thought they were going to be there for life. But now will come down from their governments and says, you've got 6 months to be out of here, or you've got 6 weeks to be out of here. And there's no choice. They have to leave related to that. That is a very real challenge in our day and age with work. What else? What are some of the others?
Children
Yeah.
not coping well.
Sorry?
Children not coping well.
Yeah. One of the biggest issues in the attrition research that was found was one of the biggest reasons people leave the field is because of some issue related to their children. Sometimes education, sometimes emotional, sometimes whatever it might be. And so that's a big factor, and that's not going to go away. Team conflict, dysfunctional teams. I think the number one, I can't remember which one is first or which one is second anymore, but on the high list, the fact that we can't work together, well, that terminates ministry. And it is one of the top 5 reasons why people leave the field is because they can't get along with your coworkers. We're going to talk about that a little bit this afternoon, this morning a little bit, because that's significant. We are a community of grace, but boy, sometimes we don't look like it, right? And we see it in our churches, we see it in our small groups, we see it in our missions work, and no wonder the world doesn't want to become like us. And it all relates to our own personal theology of grace and how we understand that. Somebody else should hand up here. Medical issues, yeah, it's just there's something that they can't get taken care of back there.
Are single missionaries finding appropriate solid friendships?
Yeah, well, there's a lot of single missionaries out there who struggle just because the relationship, the loneliness piece. Expectations are huge on single missionaries. Many unrealistic expectations. Finances. I was just talking to a lady after the session here, and she's doing some work within their group on financial stressors. Big cause, yeah.
Security issue.
Sorry?
Security.
The security piece, safety, yeah. I'm in contact right now with an organization because we have so many travelers within Barnabas. I'm feeling the stress as a leader to make sure that my people are safe when they hop on a plane and they travel to all these different countries that they're traveling to. And so, is there a tool out there that I can actually use to help them be more safe, in that realm? And so there's a company out of Chicago that will allow me to track all of my missionaries on my cell phone.
Wow.
So I can know exactly where they are, and that missionary can actually get an alert, that there's been a bombing in such and such a place, and don't go down that street, don't catch that bus, you should be on this. Well, there's professional people that can help us in this work of ministry and missions that can provide that kind of service to us so that we can do what we can to do as much as possible to keep our people safe. But that is a very strong stressor, to just always be looking over your shoulder of is someone after me? We had four of my men that were on their way to Turkey to do some crisis training with another organization, and they had one day where they could do some sightseeing in Istanbul. And I was sitting down, and CNN comes on, and I saw that there was a bomb that went off in Istanbul. And that was when a bunch of German folks were down, and they got killed. And so in my mind, I'm thinking, I got 4 of my top leaders in Istanbul. And I literally said, I wonder where they are. And thank goodness I got a text message from one of them that said, we're okay, but we were 300 yards from a bomb. Out sightseeing in this place where they were getting ready to go into this crisis. Well, thank goodness they were okay, but they had a great example for the crisis workshop that they were going to. They just lived through a little bit of a trauma there. And so this safety piece is just going to continue to grow. It's going to continue to be a part of the life of the global worker. Others, a couple more others. Yeah.
Lapse in judgment.
Yeah. What do you mean by that?
We know somebody just had to leave the field because of an unfaithfulness to his spouse.
Okay. Yeah, moral issue related to that. So a lapse in personal judgment about their own personal, spirituality or whatever. Yeah.
I was going to say spiritual burnout, like pouring into so many other people, but not having any.
Christ poured into them. Sure. So we could list multiple ones. Some of the ones that cross-cultural stress, language learning, transitions of all kinds, living in a fishbowl. Sometimes family pressures or overworked. It seems to be needs everywhere. Appreciated the fact that Brent had to say, that Jesus asked for help. Jesus withdrew. Jesus did not meet every need that came to his table. He didn't. He said no sometimes. No, I'm not going to do this today. I've got to do my Father's will. Whatever the Father willed for him to do is what he did. And so as he was in touch with his Father, and his Father laid out what his day was supposed to be like, Jesus fulfilled that. But the needs that are around the missionaries that you serve are extensive and they're great. And we even battle this in our missionary care. We're just like, the needs are so great. We can't respond to every need that's out there, and probably neither can you in your church situation. So recognizing that's there. The moral issues that we talked about, health crisis, interpersonal conflict, persecution, more and more of that on the rise, even with expatriate workers. Being detained at a border because your visa or your paperwork isn't exactly correct, and then for some reason the natural disasters, the personal traumas, and the violence is there. So what we want to do is I want Brent to lead us through an activity here that will help us kind of identify some of these stressors and more in real life type, just kind of throwing out the topics. But actual real life situations that you're seeing right now within your journey.
All right, we're going to put you to work for a little bit, okay? We're going to spend a few minutes, and we have on the pillars around here, we have different categories. Violence, crime, coup, things like that, personal trauma, interpersonal conflicts, persecution, natural disaster, and health crisis. What we're going to do, we have Post-it notes up here for you with Sharpies. And Perry's going to kind of pass these around, I think. And what we want you to do is we want you to think about, get in mind some specific missionaries you are working with in specific situations you know of. Don't make up ones you've heard of or that you think might be. These are actual people that you know who have actually encountered these certain situations. And they're going to have 6 different categories. We have one, health crisis. So what kind of health issues or crisis have your missionaries experienced this year? Okay, let's even keep it to a year-long framework. This year, what kind of health crisis do you know specifically? Write down the Post-it note, stick it up under health crisis is right over there. Yeah.
There's health crisis.
Health is right over here. Interpersonal conflict. You're going to have to pass the Sharpies around, things like that, too, but we want to just put them on there. Interpersonal conflict is a stress relationship and a major factor for field workers. So share any interpersonal conflict situations your workers have expressed to you. Violence. There may be some personal violence your workers have experienced, or perhaps secondary violence within their communities. So either violence done to them specifically, or maybe violence they've witnessed on the field where they're in their community. Persecution. This is personal or group persecution for their work and ministry. Many of the people you're working with are in parts of the world that they are experiencing that it is a hostile environment for them being where they are in their part of the world. Natural disaster. Earthquakes, floodings, buildings collapsed, monsoons, things like that that European people have experienced. Put those in one category. And then personal trauma. This is similar to violence, but it's somewhat different in the sense that there may not be something that looks on the surface of violent in nature. So let's say personal traumatic experiences. Actually, even trauma could look like to someone a sudden loss of a loved one, whether close by them or even here in the States. They could have lost a parent or a sibling or someone like that. That's a personal trauma. So it may not be a violent thing, but it could also be something, it could be violent, but also could be something, a traumatic loss or some type of thing they've experienced that. So you've got access to the Post-it notes. We're going to take 5 to 10 minutes. I want you to just make a list, write one per Post-it note, And then just kind of walk. If you just, this is a thing we're going to walk around and mill around for a while. I'll be roving with the microphone.
What specifics do you want?
What do you want?
How do we write that down?
Write what down?
I mean, what do you want? Yeah, what country or what?
No, you need to write the country. Just say earthquake, or say what's that? Teen daughter raped. So something very small phrase or a word. Very no, you don't have to give the whole story or where it was. Just do some specific thing. Could be earthquake. It could be diagnosis of cancer. Things, anything like that. Just very small. Does that make sense? Is that helpful? Okay.
One of the reasons we want to do this is to help you get a feel for what real kinds of issues you're actually dealing with within the context of your church environment. And see if we can come up with some themes maybe that we're seeing through some of this as well.
A lot of times we talk about this, it can seem very theoretical. This is one of the part of the activities that really show in real life. This is what people you are talking to this year and things that we see are happening going on just within the last year. Okay?
So just raise your hands if you need more, but get right up after you want. Just start sticking them to wherever they're at.
I've got 2 more Sharpies up here too if anyone needs one.
Stick them to the walls.
Yes. Sure. Feel free to just walk around, stick them up on the different categories, anywhere along the post there.
These are all out. Yeah, we have a few Sharpies.
There's one right there.
Violence, crime up here, personal trauma, persecution back there, interpersonal conflicts over here, natural disasters, health crisis.
Yeah. When you were done, you want me to walk over to each one with my microphone and kind of read off what we have?
Yeah, that'd be great.
Do that. Okay.
Kind of see what they are and
Maybe we can both. We can kind of go back and forth so it goes a little faster. You take my mic, I'll walk over to the.
You
Is your wireless? Oh no, I'll just take it. It's all right. Just so everyone has an idea. And then we give one to each group. Maybe just
got
like one here.
5. You guys got 5 of them, and so I've got 15 groups. So
if we have time, I might retreat each one just to let people get that flavor, and then we go to each.
I think that might be helpful.
Okay. They can see the variety of different things we're talking about.
So this is 1, 2. There's 5 in each package. So there's 1 through 5, 1 through 5, 1 through 5 here.
Does each group get just one?
Yeah.
Okay.
So that way we could have 15.
Or maybe a few groups.
15 groups of.
Yeah. Yeah.
Split up. Got a lot of people, so
We do groups of 5 or something like that. Do we have
maybe 8, 6
Yeah.
to 8, something like that.
Okay.
I think the more you, this could be a great exercise for you to actually do within your own missions team. Just looking at the missionaries within your church, for example, and just be able to say, you can take any of these categories that we've talked about: interpersonal relationships, violence, trauma, cross-cultural stress, anything that you felt like was a stressor in their lives, and identify them as a team, a missions team at your church, and just say, okay, let's take some time in a missions committee meeting and just think through the last 6 months of what we know about our lives of our missionaries that are out there, and let's begin to identify some of the stressors that could relate into some of these categories. And certainly, just the identification of these stressors and specific situations would give you as a team the opportunity to come up with a prayer plan for those situations. That would be an easy connecting the dots. We're seeing all of this violence that's taking place in the lives of our missionaries, then it ought to impact how we're praying. But are there other things that we can be doing as a church related to this specific topic and stressor of violence, or this particular topic of trauma, or where do we need help from somebody else outside of our church to help us with these kinds of situations? So it is a good exercise for you to do within the thinking of your own local missionaries that are being sent out. Now, of course, we're going to have a greater number of sticky notes because of our group size and because of the reach, the global reach that we have from this audience. One thing that is another way that you could to do this exercise as well would be to say, kind of what Brent was talking about as he was ending his talk this morning, was that this is what's impacting all the people that we're serving. So you use one color of sticky notes for all your missionaries. Then you use a different color of sticky notes for you as a team. Because each of you are experiencing health issues, interpersonal issues, maybe some violence, maybe some persecution, maybe some of these things. Because that's going to impact how you actually provide your care. It's going to impact how you relate to your missionaries, depending on what kinds of stressors are coming into your life personally, is going to make a difference how you reach out and do your shepherding of those that you're serving. So Brent's going to take us through some of these and read off some of these things to help us get kind of a perspective of what this group's dealing with on a day-to-day basis.
So I want you to I'm not going to get through all of these, but I think it's just in this relatively small microcosm of missionary experience. I want you to just kind of sit for a minute and take in some of the things you hear, the amount of the issues and stressors that just even in this room are being represented worldwide. I'm not going to get through all. We're going to leave these up afterwards too, so I want to break if you want to mill around just to take this in. It's pretty amazing. But just in health crisis, we have infertility, malaria, chronic fatigue syndrome, many multiple miscarriages of a stillborn, dementia of a parent, thyroid, hand injury, chronic sickness, undiagnosed, serious dental issues that are affecting their work, anxiety and depression. Grandson has cancer, endometriosis, expecting a child, very premature twins, one death, abnormal pregnancy, dealing with illnesses without access to health care, breast cancer, not being able to explain the symptoms to a doctor when you don't know the language very well. That's a big one. Brain tumor, back surgery. That's a lot.
Yeah. That's weighty, isn't it? This is a weighty workshop because we're talking about challenges. Right. What are the other ones there, Brent? Looks like interpersonal conflicts that...
Interpersonal conflicts. Team members didn't like Americans. Ultra-conservative views of politics and how the politics of our nation right now is affecting personal conflicts across the world. Spousal spouse unfaithful, disagreement on future strategy of the mission, shut down after not giving approval to lead by director, major conflict with leadership, having to be the go-between for warring teammates, 12-year unresolved conflict between 3 missionaries. 12 years. Interpersonal staff losses, assigned a roommate, difficulty with roommate situations, determine where to send children for college and schooling, terrible leadership, betrayal by leadership, change of leadership, communism, marital crisis over the next assignment decision, random roommate incompatibility for someone who's single. Let's see what else. A lot of change in director focus in education, conflict with teammates, financial crisis for field agency, cross-cultural marriage issues, low finances, creating a lot of interpersonal conflict.
We're going to take this particular interpersonal issues and talk a little bit more in a minute about the conflict issue, but I would like you to kind of begin to think in your mind, what really can you do as a church missions team or in your particular role to address some of that deep-seated interpersonal relationship stuff? Is it possible for you in your work and in your influence to have any kind of impact into those kinds of issues? Because that's the question we're asking, right? That's why we're here. We want to be looking at how we can face these challenges and what can we do as caregivers to engage in them with that. And some of them are a little bit more difficult for the local church to be involved with than the mission agency, or if you will, the actual professional organization like Minnesota Renewal or Barnabas International. And so it'd be good to maybe have a little dialogue about that today, about how the interconnectedness of our worlds as caregivers, how could they impact specific areas of these challenges versus others? Because some are going to be more easily attained to from the church perspective, others are going to be more difficult, but that doesn't mean they're not able to be accomplished with that. So that's a good listing of the reality of what's happening in the lives of your missionaries. And so how can you actually engage with that is the question we have to ask today. What's that one, Brad?
Our natural disasters, we have at least a half a dozen earthquakes, several floods, smog, water shortage, drought. Let's see, we've got the Paris attacks, the loss of life, and that water shortage, an orchard fire. There was a massive fire created by squatters. A lot of earthquakes, famine, drought, earthquakes, and flooding. Major disasters there.
So while he works his way over, I'd just be curious to know how have you responded as a church or a caregiver to natural disasters? Maybe we could throw out some ideas today before we go on, since we're not going to address this one directly. But it'd be interesting to know if have you been able to provide care when one of your folks has been in that kind of situation, and what level of care were you able to provide for them, or resources? Yeah, John.
This was with my home church, and also first was connected with the agency work, but there's earthquake, the Paul area,
right?
And just, but so we felt so hard. First, how you can connect.
Yeah, can you actually know that they're alive?
Are you alive? It had an orphanage and a school, and the whole thing was demolished, and so we felt helpless. But are you okay? What can be done? And we have a team to help you with. The key was then we raised funds and found the right place to get as quick as we could to help with immediate survival stuff.
Sure.
That was just initial.
Yeah, good. Anything else that any of you have done? Right. Mm-hmm.
Well, we have a sister church in Ukraine.
Yeah.
And in the war, the Russians came in and took over this church and tried to kill the pastor. And so the whole church came into the West. we had a gift for Jesus on Christmas, and we took a portion of that gift for Jesus for
Right.
refugees. We helped that whole refugee church and the pastor. Now that pastor is our assistant pastor. in our
Okay.
church. And that whole congregation joined our church.
Yeah, that's great. Yes, one more.
We were sent to Indonesia after the tsunami
Okay.
to sit down with our missionaries there,
Right.
hear their story, help them process their grief. He was a relief pilot picking up bodies off the beach.
Wow.
So,
Yeah.
and all we did basically was look at his pictures and listen to him.
Yeah. That ministry of presence, though, that ministry of being available, knowing that someone from the local church or someone from the care organization is going to come over and sit with us and talk with us about all the things that they experienced is a significant way you can actually lean into them. And so certainly in a natural disaster type of situation, there's going to be that immediate response of, are they alive? Do we know if they still have a house? What have they lost materially? But then to begin to ask those deeper questions of how are these losses that have been experienced impacting their ministry? When you have a situation like that, and you might be a church planner, and you've got a natural disaster that takes place in your area, you are no longer a church planner. You are a relief specialist. And your job changed overnight. And so the church may feel like, well, you're still planning the church, and the bottom line is we're just helping people get bread on the table and get their homes built back together. And so the shift in expectation needs to change in your mind as well. And so coming alongside those people in the midst of those disasters are significant. And another thing I'd encourage you to do would be to, as a missions team, you should have a list of organizations right close at hand that actually respond to natural disasters. There's professional organizations out there that you could actually tap into, that you could begin to get resources from as a local church, having someone serving in a particular area. And a few phone calls literally could interconnect and network one of your local missionaries with one of those new representatives that's going to be on the field so that they can get some natural disaster relief quickly. So you can be involved. It's just a difficult step to take forward. So be thinking about that as we go around. Brent.
All right, this is under category persecution. Again, these are ones that your people have experienced within the last year. Location, being forced to change locations, expulsion from country, police shutdown of rallies, persecution, more subtle. Others are like severe atheists or Muslims, creating persecution. Ongoing visa uncertainty, family had to leave the country because of war and unrest. In China, being very careful about how to preach the gospel. Long delay in order to get shipment through. Being monitored consistently by police and government. Imprisoned unjustly. Being slandered on Facebook, hurting your business and church. Being wiped for racial issues. Being persecuted for racial issues in the country they're in.
It's interesting. Sometimes we can feel pretty detached from the issues of persecution with those people that are serving overseas, and it kind of comes in subtle ways. Not necessarily always being locked up in jail or being tortured for your faith. It could be made to maybe when they're waiting in the bank line to get their money out for that particular week. The teller knows that they're a Christ follower, and they just keep saying, no, go to the back of the line. Go to the back of the line. We're not going to serve you just yet. Go back to the back of the line. So they wait all day to get money out of the bank based on their faith and based on their journey. So it becomes a lifestyle issue of persecution that they're dealing with. And just to be able to do life in that country because of their faith can sometimes put them at interesting risks and cause them to not be able to do life. And that's a stressor. It isn't necessarily they're being locked up and being tortured for their faith, but essentially they're being isolated out because of their testimony for Christ, and they're being put into a different category by either the government or the local community or the local little mayor who runs the little village and all those kinds of things. So those are the things we can be praying against specifically as we shepherd our people. Brent?
All right, this is under personal trauma. Have death of a sister, 4 years of no focus in ministry. parent with traumatic brain injury, depression, loneliness while learning the language, homeschooling a child with dyslexia who didn't realize had this challenge, the trauma of the parent and the child, a car hijacking, roommate incompatibility, difficulty with that, a son able to function in their new school, daughter's unexplained illness, sister's divorce, grandparents' death, death of grandmother, someone's diagnosed with autism, had to leave the field, dad's cancer, child whooping cough, had to evacuate to get treatment, marriage breakdown, losses of parents, infidelity, death of grandparents. I see a lot of parents' health back in the States, aging parents, we mentioned that this morning, visa denied, a lot of women being harassed in the field they're in, child addicted to drugs, children leading the faith, death of family members, a lot.
The book up here, a couple books related to sorrow and blood. Bill Taylor put together Christian missions in the context of suffering, persecution, and martyrdom. It's a big, heavy read. You're not going to read this in one sitting, certainly, because of the magnitude of what's being dealt with in here. This one has just come out recently called Trauma and Resilience, a handbook effectively supporting those who serve God in the midst of trauma and crisis, and how you can provide some resiliency with them in traumatic situations. I know some of you here, just from our work, have worked with people in trauma situations. I just would be curious if you would have a comment related to this kind of audience about, anything specific that you could say. When you find your missionary who's experienced personal trauma, these would be the first 5 things you ought to be considering as you jump into it. Any of you who've done that kind of work, be willing to stick your neck out here and give some advice? Yeah, Gail.
Well, when you think of being first responder, Brent mentioned that word. If your organization, whatever they can do to help your person connect with somebody who can give that initial
First response,
that peer debriefing, whatever,
right.
That opportunity to
Tell their story and debrief them well is key. Rather than holding it in for 4 years and then tell you when they get back. Kind of what Brent was talking about. Yeah. Having an open mind and being patient, in that kind of a situation. Yeah. Yeah, Jeff.
One thing that is, at least for me, wasn't something intuitive is that having somebody tell you their story of their trauma can be traumatizing itself. And so it's very natural for us to want to hear people's stories, but it isn't always good for them to tell them unless you're in a situation where it feels safe and they can kind of stay grounded in the present. So being mindful that just repeating the story can actually just repeat the trauma.
John, how important is listening for the caregiver at this point?
Yeah, it's really crucial. To listen to someone going through trauma and tell their story, even if they're telling it over and over and over again.
Yeah.
And build a relationship with them where they trust you. And to, as much as you can, normalize their reaction.
Right.
That their reaction may be a normal reaction to an abnormal event.
Yeah.
What trauma is.
Yeah. Kind of levels the playing field a little bit in the dialogue and the discussion, and kind of normalizes the traumatic situation that they're involved with, and it gives them an opportunity to kind of, work through it and process through it. Certainly, it's really interesting. It's easy sometimes, especially for those of us who've lived overseas, and I find myself, I do this often. I need to really catch myself on it. Is someone will share a stressor experience, and your first response is, well, I've got a story like that. Well, that's not what they want to hear. They don't want to hear my story of my experience necessarily of whatever it was that I experienced that would maybe be similar or comparable. And I'll tell you what, missionary kids are really good at this. If you sit around with a group of
of 19 and 20-year-olds, and they begin to tell stories and unpack their stories about their life and their journey. There's another kid over here that has got a really good story that he could share and he could tell, and it's almost as I can top you because of my trauma experience is worse than your trauma experience, and that isn't necessarily healthy when you're sitting around the table having dinner together with one another. It can really build some interpersonal relationship problems that can take place if you're working with a group of kids like that. So this kind of mentality of we have experienced a lot in this room about global experiences, and we need to be cautious about offering our own experiences at that point, but allowing that person to really unpack their world with us, listen, be attentive. Not always either just going to prayer and giving a verse over it, but to really trying to empathize with what's that person is talking about certainly can be a factor. John?
We have a worker that's in central Turkey, and a couple of years ago started shifting focus to working with the refugees coming in, so many of them. And so we normally take a lot of prayer journey teams there for a different focus, but this will be our second team going to work with the refugees.
Wow.
But part of that team, we're doing advocacy projects to hear all the stories. We have young people living with the refugees, having meals every day. And so we have specialized training, trauma training for the team. How do you understand what the refugees are going through right now? But then also for yourself, self-care. And we've never had to do that for short-term vision teams.
Sure.
But we brought that later in, special training, just for that time.
That specialized training is out there and available. It's not, it is offered by some mission organizations to get that kind of trauma training, but it also is offered in the private sector world. They're dealing with the same issues, and so you could attend, or you could send a team, 2 or 3 team members from your missionary team to go ahead and get some trauma training, so that you could be available as a first responder, or at least have some comparable understanding of trauma. Because as you can see, it's going to continue to be on the rise. It's not going to go away. It's always going to be greater. Okay, let's do this last one.
Yeah, it's interesting looking at these, but also looking at some of the natural disasters. In other words, it makes me think of Maslow's hierarchy of needs. You may have heard that before. And he talks about how the foundation is to be able to have safety, security, food, shelter, things like that. Before we can actually start thinking higher order of how am I doing in my personal life? How are my relationships? I just read some of these and I think about the expectations of our missionaries to continue to think on these higher order things, when many of the very basic things in life are being threatened and not there. And I just thought about it. I was reading these, but here's some of the things that are on this section of violence: mob justice, downtown stabbing, a gas bomb, house robbery, embassy bombings, robbed at the airport, coworker murdered, a break-in and physical assault, theft, South American government unrest, roads were closed, unable to get supplies and petroleum, coups, teen daughter raped, evacuation, military coup, armed home invasion, robbery at gunpoint, stolen purse, lost passport. That's crucial. I mean, think about that. When we think about just those basic needs, and the expectation of continuing to function at this high level of ministry, when some of these things are happening, this is just happening just from connections in this room this year. I'm kind of curious, just as we've gone through these real briefly, and pardon me, I'm a psychologist, I talk about emotions, but what's your emotional response? We've just read a lot of these. Just how do you feel? How does this strike you emotionally, just hearing in this one room what people you're serving are experiencing just this year? Empathy? Sadness? Overwhelmed? Yeah.
You just said that this is a weighty workshop. This whole conference is kind of weighty.
It is.
And I knew I was going to come to that. And I wasn't real good on myself here prior to coming. So I was so glad, Brent, at the end, you focused on Jesus and how he self-cared. So thank you for that.
Quick commercial real quick. You're going to be exhausted tonight and this weekend, the rest of the weekend. Be mindful of that. You might be. I mean, you may not all be, but you might be really, really exhausted. and might feel very overwhelmed and kind of just numb. Expect that. Expect that. Plan for that. Plan for tonight or tomorrow as much as possible. Tomorrow to Sabbath and to worship, to rest. To have someone maybe even next week that you can process a little bit of what you talked about and heard this weekend. Of having someone you can make a phone call to or email. But just know that, as you said, I appreciate you saying, this is a weighty 24 hours or less than that. And so just be mindful of that you're going to be tired and you're going to be overwhelmed, and find ways that you can actually take care of yourself after this and plan for that. Because if you just kind of go, oh, I've got all these things afterwards, that might not be great, but just carve out some time just to be and take care of yourself after this.
So that's a significant part of it, you see. It's a part of the, if you will, filling up the reservoir on a continual basis, so that as you are filled up with Jesus and Christ, as well as not just Him, but this is a great opportunity just as for awareness sake, to say, is this something I need to be a bit more aware of, and do I need to do a little bit of reading about some of this stuff? Do I need to become a little bit more of an expert on certain areas on my missions team? Should I grab one of these books and work through it? Do I need to attend a workshop someplace that might give me some helps along the way? I think that's part of what we're here for this week, and as well, is to say, let's heighten the awareness of some of these issues, provide you with some resources that you can kind of jump into and explore and go from there. But it definitely, we can't separate the fact that it does have an emotive piece in it with it, for sure. So I just want to pray over that right now and stop and ask God to give us a sense of His presence in the midst of this difficult stuff. Father, as we listen to these real life situations of people that we love, people that we care about, people that we maybe have even cried with this year, because of these situations, it breaks our heart. We're very aware that you knew everything that was going to happen related to these issues. We have to rely on your sovereignty, but yet we do know, Lord, that we live in an evil world. I think sometimes, God, we think that there's things that we can do to fix these things, and we can fix all this stuff, and the realization is that the world is going to get darker and darker and darker the closer it is to your return. And Father, we would ask that you just prepare our hearts for that, prepare our minds for that, prepare our families for that. Help us to really hold on to this hope. It really is all that we can hold on to in you, to know that through these difficult situations, you're a constant. You're one that we can rely on and that we can rest on. So give us wisdom as we work with those people that are represented by these sticky notes. And their real faces, their real families, and their real life situations. So we commit each of them to you. Whatever is happening in their lives right now, from these situations, we ask that you would pour your Spirit in on them. Allow them to recognize that you're a God who loves them and cares for them. And we know that you're capable of that. Your Word allows that to happen. And your Spirit makes it active. And so we're grateful. And help us to internalize that too, as we work with ourselves, with our own family members, as well as those that we serve. So we're thankful, Father, that you're in the midst of all of this. And we give you praise for that. In your name, amen. A couple of the topics we wanted to look at just more specifically was the issue of grief and loss. I know that a few of the other workshops have been talking about this, so I'm not going to spend a lot of time on this, but there's tons of losses that these situations actually evoke. Loss of locations, loss of dreams, loss of hopes, loss of our image, of our status, of relationships. Physical death was talked about here, certainly. And so, how can we help? How can we reach out to provide some help for these folks in some of this deep loss situations? So one of the ways is for you to talk with your missionary candidates about grief and loss. Do it on the front end. Do some preparation, in-house discussion and training on grief. Talk about the wheel of grief and all the emotions that come out of that. We often, in our situation, Sandy and I will just be thinking about losses that we have, and we'll just say, well, where are you at today? Well, I'm actually kind of mad. Or no, I'm bargaining with God because of this loss. Or no, I've accepted it today. I think about, the worker at Minnesota Renewal who just lost her husband. She's going to go through that cycle of grief, as well as all those people close to her. And it's not like she's probably ever going to get to that place where there's full acceptance until we get to glory, with the losses that we experience in our lives. And so it's good for us to be able to identify it, help our people label it. You may even want to come up with a contingency planning of some sort with your missionaries from your church perspective. I don't know how deep you get into that. Follow closely with your missionaries on the field and any losses they may experience. Be willing to provide some level of debriefing or some places to tell their story, if you will, to be able to process some of this. Provide some guidance and advice and some maybe financial assistance if they need it, if that's going to be an encouragement to them. And then this whole aspect of are you allowing them to take some annual Sabbath? Are you giving them permission as a church, as a mission agency, to actually get away, not for vacation, not for just rest, but specifically to be in touch with God and to renew their souls spiritually into some specific Sabbath activity or event that could take place. That could be something that you as a church could actually provide. One of the things that we've noticed, Scott Sham, I put it I think on your resource page, but one of our staff development director in our organization is a great writer. He travels the world. He came up with 5 different areas of issues that we're seeing, trends in the people that we work with. And one of them is that the missionaries don't feel permission to take care of this particular aspect of their life. So that expectation piece is the move towards perfection. But when I am spiritually dry and I am spiritually anemic, I don't feel the permission to withdraw from ministry for a time to actually engage with spiritual revival and spiritual renewal. Now, of course, if we're doing what Brent talked about and taking our weekly Sabbath and spending time with the Lord on a regular basis, our tanks are going to be more full to do the work that God's called us to do. But there is a benefit, and I would encourage you as a church to really consider this. There is a benefit for you actually saying the words, we give you permission, and here's a policy that says we want you to take time to nurture your soul spiritually. And that's an expectation as well. We want you to take the time for it. And if you don't have the money for it, we're going to provide the money and we're going to provide the place for you to take care of this. And give them that opportunity. And that's huge for them to do it. And the other thing that was mentioned today is just provide that presence. Presence is interesting. Does it mean that I have to be in the same room to provide presence? Our technical world, our technology world has changed presence significantly. There are people that I can get right now, I can just log on and I can send a message and they're going to feel somewhat like I'm present. Is that a false sense of presence? That's not the topic of the workshop today, but well, I'll tell you, there's a lot of people that are into the world of social media and social interaction related to technology that have a sense of presence there. We can use that to our benefit, certainly in missions. I don't believe it will ever replace a sit down across the table for coffee or being in someone's home. And I would never urge you to just go in one direction related to virtual presence. I guess that's what you would call it. But there is some benefits to that. To be able to regularly be on, you can journey with someone spiritually over a video call, and we're doing that. And then we also have that face-to-face piece that's really significant, and that's part of the process as well. And that goes for all these issues of conflict and persecution. That presence piece is really important for us to consider. We got to move quickly because we want to get into these groups. Conflict. What aspects of our lives tend to break down when we experience conflict? Real quick. What breaks down in our life when we experience all these? Over here. Trust. Yeah. Joy is gone. Yeah. Our purpose gets shifted and changed. Yeah. A lot happens when conflict and interpersonal relationships go awry. And we're not going to talk about some of these causes necessarily, but how can we help with some of these things? Provide team building training prior to departure. Trust building. When trust is broken, what can you do to rebuild it? In Barnabas, we talk a lot about trust chips. If I, as a leader, go in and make a decision or have an interaction with someone, and I've taken some of my trust chips off the table, it's very important that those chips be put back on somehow. Otherwise, the foundation of our conflict is going to continue to grow, and we're not going to solve any problems that way. So we're very intentional, and we actually use those words. You just took some of my trust chips. Did you know that? By that comment. And then that helps us to recognize that, oh my goodness, I've moved into an area that's really a personal relationship issue, and I need to figure that out before I move on to trying to solve my problem, whatever that might be. More emphasis on people and less on task. Seeking openness and communication and clarity with your workers. Again, going deeper and deeper as much as you can. Journey along with your missionaries in their character development. Be great to just be able to have a conversation on your missions team, to be able to say, how have we seen ex-missionaries' character qualities and character of Christ more defined this last year than, and what are the evidences of that? And how can we journey with them in that process? If the conflict gets really bad, you may need to send a mediation team to help foster new relationships, a conflict resolution team that goes in and actually provides that kind of thing, and then become a safe church, and we'll talk more about that and pray. There's the moral dilemmas, the big issue that is out there. We need to remember that we live in a sinful world. The missionaries are not exempt from it, but they live in the midst of it. Moral failures do happen within missions, and you're very much aware of that, I'm sure. But no one organization is exempt from the possibility. And I would even encourage you in your own marriages to be ever so diligent in your relationship with your spouse, because none of us here are exempt from that possibility. All of us could move into that area if we're not careful. And so being attentive to that is significant. So churches can actually, one of the things that we're finding is that the younger and younger missionaries that are coming onto the field have a lower or a less foundation of biblical literacy. Maybe they don't have the biblical knowledge, or they don't have the biblical experience related to our generation, the way we were raised, and so the impact that churches can have on talking and teaching from the pulpit, on moral issues as part of the ethos of the church is pretty significant. To be slow to judge and quick to offer grace is really important. Shepherd workers through moral issue is important. Being able to tend to them, mentor coaching, those kinds of things. So those are just some things that we put there so that you could have some ideas of some things that you can do. Protecting confidentiality is really important in moral issues as you're working with your folks. If someone confides in you, I had a friend of ours that just went to France this last week to do a building project on a short-term team with one of our church missionaries. And he came back, and we were praying together before Sunday school on Sunday. And after the prayer time, he just came up to me and he said, I got a question to ask you. He goes, I heard some things in France when I was sitting around talking to the missionaries, and I don't know what to do with them. There's some pretty serious issues that are happening in that particular family. But I think I need to kind of tell somebody, and he said, do you think I should go talk to the missions pastor? right away about it? And I said, well, was it given to you in confidence? Did you ask? You know, his heart is saying, I really think they could use some help. But that missionary confided in him in a more personal, shepherding environment. But his desire is to go and get help and to do what he can to make a difference in the situation. And I just had to caution him. I said, if you run as a missions pastor right now, whatever the issue might be, without having permission from the person that you talked to or confided in you, you are going to break trust and you're going to lose a bunch of trust chips and you will never be invited as a church member back to that field to do any kind of work with that group. And it could cause a lot of problems within the church context. So he was like, "Oh, really? Are you kidding me?" I'm like, well, I think if I were you, I would just get on the phone and tell the person that you sense that you'd like to have the church help. But if they would say no, you're going to have to sit with that somehow to figure out confidentiality. And those of you who work in the field of psychology could be a help to us as in our pastoring ministries to say what's really the best way to manage that confidentiality piece, because that's the quickest thing that's going to erode trust when it comes to these issues of moral dilemma and stuff. So we want to give some time. We don't have a lot of time here, but we want to give some time to these case studies that we have here. So Brent, how are we going to do this in the time we have? Just maybe work through one. Or we can do it all?
One together, or?
I don't know. Where do you reckon? We have time?
Okay.
Yes, we do. Split them up real quick, huh?
Yeah, let's do this real quick. We don't have a whole lot of time, but we want to get some practical help. Yes?
We can go an extra 10, 15 minutes to...
Okay.
Okay, great.
Okay.
The boss just gave us permission. We're not going to break trust now, right? We're going to go.
We don't want to lose trust chips here. We don't want to lose trust chips.
Our trust chips have been just dumped onto us. We're going to take them.
All right, so what we'd like you to get it in groups. No more than 8. Actually, I think probably, let's do groups of 5. No more than 5. If you're with people you know, that's fine. If you're with people you don't know, that's fine. But we're going to have you get groups of 5. We're going to give you some case studies. I'm actually going to read through really briefly each one, just so you have an idea of the breadth of what we're going to have you do. Then Perry's going to walk around and give your group a case study. And we're going to give you just about 10 or 15 minutes to kind of develop a rudimentary plan. This comes across your email. This comes a phone call. Your mission organization says, "Hey, listen, we just got this communication from this family, this issue. We need you to have put together a case plan for that." Okay? So go ahead and get in groups, get together, and then I'm going to read some of these case studies, and we're going to hand them out to you as we read them. So go ahead and just get in groups.
Split over here on the sides.
Yeah, you can share around, get around the room if you need to. That's fine. Take like 1 minute. Meet 4 other people. Get in a group.
We've got extra copies too. You got 5 and I got 5 here.
Yeah.
My own copies. So we got.
Let's see how many groups we get. If you can keep it to 5, that'd be great. No more than 5.
You got 6. You just lost 2 trust chips. We are an organization of grace, so that's okay.
Yes, we do extend grace. All right, good job. You got in groups very quickly. All right. I'm going to briefly read through each one of the case studies. We have 5 case studies. We're going to pass them randomly around to the groups. I'm going to read all 5 briefly, just so you can kind of get an idea of the different kind of scenarios that are going to be out there. You're going to get one specifically to do. And so let me just read some of these case studies. The first one is this. A couple has lived in far western China for 6 years. They have 3 children, a girl aged 14, a girl aged 12, and a boy aged 9. They have a company exporting ethnic crafts while they work among a Muslim minority. Their teammates, another Western family of 4, are on leave in the U.S. for the next 2 months. There's a strong sense of healthy bonding within these 2 families, and the couple you're visiting are manifesting signs common to an accumulative impact of stress and loss. This family has been out of China 2 times during the last 6 years, a 3-month visit to the U.S. after 2 years in China, and a 1-month vacation in Thailand 1 year ago. A month ago, their eldest daughter was assaulted after school by some Muslim boys. She was groped and verbally threatened. This traumatic event has triggered a response of exhaustion and feeling overwhelmed. You'll have 3 days with them in their city. How would you go about tending to them? In general, what sort of counsel recommendations are you going to offer them, and how would you like to get these elements into your talks? We realize there are many circumstances we have not given. Just go with the generic scene and let us into your thinking, concerns, and approaches with them. Some of you are going to get that on. A mission society has sent a new specialist to a particular field. His assignment was to find new opportunities for current staff and help make the total operation more efficient. Unfortunately, the mission did not make clear to either the specialist nor the field staff the extent of his authority. His natural style was very directive and inattentive to people's feelings. Almost always, attempts by missionaries to clarify roles or make suggestions were met with rebuffs, criticisms, and indictments. People were summarily dismissed from certain responsibilities and reassigned to other roles without explanation. Sometimes these changes were announced in public meetings in a manner that seemed brusque and rude to the one affected. Missionaries frequently wrote friends and supporters in their sending church complaining about this maltreatment. Gossip among staff was rampant. Complaints to the home office were ignored and minimized. What are some things the local church might do to help in this situation? These are real life situations, okay? Some of you are like, yeah, we know. Okay. My husband and I have been serving in missions for nearly 20 years. We started in missions as singles and met each other on the field. We were married 2 years later. We returned to the field under our sending agency. Our work involves church planting in a major city in Asia. Along the way, we began to have children. They were able to attend the international mission school in our city. With my husband's years of experience and also his leadership skills, the mission moved him to a role of field director. We felt this was the right decision for us as a family at the time, but the job requires a significant amount of travel for my husband. This leaves me at home alone, raising the children. As our children are moving into high school, the tension of his absences is growing stronger. My husband loves his role, and we are seeing churches planted all throughout the region. However, I'm lonely, and our children need their father. Our sending church is excited about all the Lord is doing through our ministry, yet I'm feeling like I'm losing my children. Don't know what to do, not sure who to talk with. You're going to get one of them. Your group's going to get one. I'm just reading just to get you an idea of what's going to be in the room, but you're going to get one. Yeah, don't worry. Don't feel overwhelmed, okay? All right. Number 4. A couple with no children from your sending church is having marital problems. They've been working on a team as agricultural tent makers among an African group for the past 5 years. The work is going well, but the long hours needed to travel and provide assistance have affected their relationship, and so they say. Both acknowledge that they have come from very difficult family backgrounds with poor parental modeling of conflict resolution. They saw a counselor on the last furlough a year ago, attended a marriage retreat, but no lasting changes have occurred. The wife's relationship with the local women is significant, and she's having an impact on lives. The husband has no close relationship outside of his work and is wondering if he is in a midlife crisis. The mission agency has decided to let them continue on the field and to do the best they can until they get some help somewhere. How would you try to help this couple? All right, last one. Jim and Lynn, new to their country of assignment and deep into language and cultural acquisition, are busy building relationships with the local people. Lynn has demonstrated an amazing aptitude for language learning. She is well ahead of Jim in this area, triggering in him some strong feelings of insecurity and inadequacy. Not only has he become unduly critical of Lynn and of things in general, withdrawing from spiritual and social activities, but he's also been indulging in pornography. During the application process, Jim has not mentioned a previous pornography addiction because at the time he'd been free of it for 2 years. He believed the desire was gone. The current increase of stress has caused it to reoccur, and the temptation is stronger than ever. Jim spends many evenings accessing porn sites on the computer, and Lynn is worried and concerned for Jim, so she's reaching out to a dear friend who is part of the church missions committee. What steps can you take to help Jim and Lynn? What steps might you have taken ahead of time to prepare Lynn and Jim for this scenario? And how can you as a church build safe relationships with Jim and Lynn? Those are 5 examples, real case studies that have come across Perry's desk. We're going to give each group of you one and take about 10 minutes. I know that's not a whole lot of time. But just kind of brainstorm together, what might you do if this is the scenario presented to you, and how some things you might, concrete steps, and be as much as you can to be very specific about things you would kind of put in place for these families, these individuals, these couples, in kind of coming alongside them.
You want to press that?
Yeah, sure.